Hi, everybody. On behalf of the Royal Television Society, I am delighted to be joined by the incredible cast and creators of Everyone Else Burns to celebrate the recent launch of Series 2 on Channel 4. I'm Rihanna Dillon, and joining us today, we have the wonderful creators, writers, and exec producers Dillon Mapletoft and Oliver Taylor, along with David and Fiona Lewis themselves. It's Simon Bird and Kate O'Flynn. Hi.
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 Hello. The critically acclaimed and RTS award-winning comedy series is produced by Jax Media UK and Universal International Studios, which is a division of Universal Studio Group. And the new season is available to stream live on Channel 4 now. So before we get into our brilliant panel, let's have a little taste of the wonderful delights that Series 2 has to offer.
I'd say it's mixed news.
Yes, in the sense that it's horror mixed with despair, mixed with the sensation of your head being in a vice.
Look, I have a plan. I'm going to prostrate myself before the pie-making succubus that did this to us.
And if that doesn't work?
Fiona, it has to work, because the alternative doesn't bear thinking about.
Think about it, David. We need to think about it.
Well, in that case, you, the whole family, would have to decide whether to stay in the faith or be with me.
Okay, I need some air. Aaron, can I put you in charge of telling Rachel our world is collapsing?
Yep. I'll give her a buzz.
I can talk Maud round, Aaron. Don't worry.
Dad, I saw you guys wedged in a VCR. Of course I'm worried.
Congratulations to all of you on Series 2 of Everyone Else Burns. It is an absolute triumph. Dillon and Oliver, to start us off, after Series 1 ended, did you already have a clear idea of where you wanted Series 2 to go? Dillon, let's start with you.
We were sort of raring to go and go basically as soon as Series 1 finished. You know, it's sort of such a privilege to just get to kind of open up these characters. And I think, you know, we definitely felt like we'd had kind of a central sort of thrust to the show in terms of relationships that we'd been exploring in Series 1. There's David and Fiona and Rachel and Joshua. And I think we felt like for Series 2, we were really excited by the idea of that being like a sort of theme for the whole series and just spending more time with these characters and sort of pushing them as far as we could in kind of that kind of side of it. Does that make sense, Ollie?
Yeah, definitely. I think that we had narratively that direction from the fact that season 1 ended with Rachel having to stay in the order, or not getting to go to university, rather. The return of Josh to the order, that dangling thread of what's the future look like for them. But besides the narrative direction we're going to take it in, we were just really excited to relax into the world now that we've established it, get to write for the characters. Now we know the whole cast really, really well, and now we know how to write for their voices, and to just have lots more fun with it, make it even pacier, make it even funnier, make it feel like a real pacey, funny sitcom. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, having Kate and Simon's voices in our heads was very helpful. And, you know, being able to say things like, oh, do you remember when Kate screamed money magnet at Morgana? Can we get her to do that again? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Annotating sort of that money magnet energy here.
Yeah.
We do get such a good sense of where David and Fiona are in their marriage in season 1. So what changes for your characters in season 2, Kate?
Well, I mean, I think there's throughout series 2, there's maybe there's a threat of Maud, and she really, she really exposes the problems in the relationship. But I do think there's a kindness that develops between them that wasn't there in season 1, and that develops over time. I don't know with Fiona whether, well, I do know. I don't think she does love David. It's not her true love, but there is definitely
It really hurt to hear that, actually. For me, I don't know about you, Simon.
Yes. Simon, I felt bad for all of us.
There's a sort of coming towards. I don't know. What would you say, Simon?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is a slight softening there, isn't there? But as they've sort of grown to understand each other a bit better, but also grown to understand their kids, I think it sort of comes from that as well. They're sort of slightly opening up to a world outside the order in a way that they wouldn't have contemplated at the beginning of series one. And that feels quite exciting for what could potentially happen in a potential series three as well. So yeah, I mean, these questions are always so hard for us because we're not in Dylan and Ollie's head.
And you don't want to be in here, I tell you.
I approach it as a fan, really. You know, it's so exciting to get the scripts for a new series and see where the characters are going.
It must be such an interesting line, sort of playing characters who do and say terrible things, who have done throughout both series, but who audiences are actually really fond of. So what have fan and audience reactions been to your particular characters, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, the reaction I've had across the board for this new series has been really, really positive. And that's, you know, that's so exciting for me. And it's exciting to be involved in a sitcom as well, that it's not, although they're saying bad things a lot of the time, like I say, I think the heart of the show is actually a weirdly progressive, and not weirdly, it is. It's sort of progressive and sort of liberal. And that means despite some of the humor having an edge, it really feels like a family sitcom. And I love that. You know, I love being involved in shows that can be watched by many generations at the same time. Yeah, so the reaction I've had has been really, really encouraging.
What about you, Kate, with Fiona?
I think, well, I would say in terms of the show, yes, the warmth of the show has been what is surprising about it, and the surprise of that has been a thrill, I think, for people that I know have watched it, you know, being pulled into a slightly an unusual world for many, and then that seems quite alienating, and then feeling this really rooting for people. And in terms of Fiona, what have I heard about Fiona? I think people just like the stony face. I don't know. Stony face seems to, you know, resonate in some way. I don't know.
Never fails to crack me up. It really doesn't. Dylan and Oliver, as we all know, for a comedy show to be really successful, we have to care about the characters and the journeys that they go on. So which storylines did you sort of, when you were initially writing this, did you see as kind of being the beating heart of series two? And what were some of the
trauma go? Sorry.
I mean, I think, you know, that there is that engine there between Rachel and Joshua, obviously, and you know where Rachel is with her kind of coming of age narrative. I mean, as I say, it really was kind of, we wanted it to be relationships. So we wanted it to be Rachel and Joshua, and sort of her kind of conundrum of like, can she make it work within the structures of this organization? What does it look like when this guy comes back and he's sort of reformed, and it's what she thought she wanted, and she feels a bit different. And then we wanted to just sort of take Simon and Kate's characters along kind of a similar journey, and sort of crack open some of the things that we'd been exploring in series one. And I think something that was really exciting for me was finding the vulnerability in a character like Simon's, where, you know, on the face of it, there's lots about that character that's quite kind of out there, but he really gets kind of pushed into, I think, really interesting in spaces this series, in terms of what people say to him, what people say kind of about him, kind of the sort of sense that he would sacrifice everything in lots of ways for his wife, but also he knows deep down that, you know, something is not entirely kind of quite right there. And it was the moment that for me was sort of most exciting was when we built up to episode 5, where the beds get pushed back together and you see Kate sort of looking at these old pictures of David and saying, you know, David, you gorgeous, godless man. And it's sort of like, you've taken a character that, as I say, on the face of it is like a little bit ridiculous, and then sort of peeled it back and said kind of like, how do we sort of totally flip the expectations here? And then, yeah, there's also a similar thing going on with Aaron, I suppose, that he's a lot, Harry's character, he's a lot younger, but again, it was sort of like, well, what does his future look like in terms of his relationships in this organization, bearing in mind what's sort of happening. Does that chime with you all?
Yeah, for sure. Kate, the gorgeous godless man line, I think I threw to you on the day. And then Dylan came back from shooting with the other unit and he was like, Ollie, did you throw that in? And I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, it's good. So a little window into his level of trust for my writing.
And I love that those were just pictures of you, weren't they, Simon? Just you looking hot.
Gorgeous and godless.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Yeah.
We had a great chat with the director going, like, yeah, hot. Leave that one out. Yeah, that it's got a Tinder swiping from Jamie Chase.
Yeah, Simon, there's a whole email thread which photos I just say just the fittest ones. Get a close up of that one where he's topless or whatever it is.
I think I should be offended actually by the fact by how surprised, like, as a major plot strand of the show is that it's surprising, like, totally hideous to look at.
You just mentioned Dylan sort of being surprised that you might have thrown in a brilliant one-liner, but how did the two of you work together? You know, what is that process, and how has that developed from series 1? Has it changed at all? Has it shifted since you began?
I live in Cambridge because I'm afraid of change, whereas Dylan lives in London. So a lot of the writing has been done over Zoom, and a lot of it will be us calling each other in the morning and holding each other accountable, outlining stuff.
I love Ollie's use of that phrase, holding each other accountable.
It's the only way to describe what it is, because I've tried writing when Dylan isn't in a little window on Zoom and nothing happens. So we do have to hold each other accountable. And the most lovely thing is when we divvy up the scenes to write, and there's one scene where someone will be like, oh, I'll write that scene. I'll write the scene where, you know, Aaron launches a coup against Samson. And Dylan was like, you will you? We'll write that together at 3:30, shall we?
Yeah,
so there's some things that we're not prepared to let go of and even let the other person do a first draft on. We're just so excited to write them that we do them together.
Totally, and that's really nice. And I think, yeah, so we basically sort of outlined the whole thing together and we sort of beated it out and had sort of shapes for the episodes, and then it really was a case of you take this scene, you take this scene. And I think where we differ slightly in sort of style is that I think Ollie maybe needs less reassurance than I do, or is sort of quite sort of like, we'll just write a joke and then sort of move on, where I'll be like, I don't know which one of these works. So here's sort of 10 of the same kind of jokes, basically, and you'll have to select them.
I love your walls of alts. I love discovering that our draft is now 45 pages long because there's just 30 versions of one joke on one of them. With an inscrutable system of highlighting, suggesting which ones you think might be good.
Yeah, it's an amazing and like humbling process to see him sort of picking them live, because it'll be like, you know, sort of day of work for me, and he'll be like, no, 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 and then it's like, I guess that one, and you know, keeps us humble.
I remember the day I had to film Fiona's confession on like a mobile phone, and Ollie and Dylan just came with all these old lines that were all hilarious. But my favourite one was definitely, he smells so powerfully of beef. He's like a human. It was just like, oh, so funny. Their minds are so quick-witted. Yeah.
And that was the one that made it in, right? That was your...
They all made it. It felt like loads of them made it in.
Oh, we ended up putting in a bunch of those.
Made it in.
And it was filmed in such a strange way because you were at Samson's desk and we wanted to capture that feeling of it being a secret camera. So we set up an iPhone or whatever it was, just kind of leaning, and then we were all just kind of like jammed in the corner of this tiny room, throwing in jokes about robot wars. It was a great day.
For you both, Simon and Kate, what are the kind of the mannerisms or even like the costumes, or what helps you step into your characters? Like you said, you know, you have the stony face, Kate, but what else is kind of just pure Fiona?
You know, I didn't get too heady about it, actually. I just remember reading the scripts the first time round and just followed my nose. Though I had an instinct about her, who she was. And I remember feeling quite anxious about being in a comedy series, knowing I had to hit the jokes in a way that I hadn't really had to do so much before. And just figuring out how to do that with this, you know, driven by the character. But the writing was so good that, yeah, I didn't get too heady, but there was a stillness to her. The wig always helps. The cape helps. The bags help. Yeah, and just the world is so distinctive when you step onto set. You are in another universe. So it is like being in you know, I talk about acting like being in a playpen, really, just being in the sandpit, and you know, it's like being at preschool, really, I suppose.
And Simon, because you obviously do write as well, so how confident are you bringing your own ideas and nuances to David, and you know, going up against Ollie and Dylan's ideas as well?
Yes, I'm.
Um,
What do you
Not,
think?
I would say, as in every area of my life, not confident at all. So, and there's just no need as well. Like, it's not something that you don't, it's not like I'm reading the script and being like, this script is lacking in jokes and I need to, you know, somebody else needs to come in and find them. No, it's like, it's an absolute treat to work on as an actor, because you just got so much to sink your teeth into. And yeah, for your, on your previous question, yeah, I agree with Kate. Really, I don't. There's nothing. I following your nose is exactly what it is. Really, it's all there on the page. It felt very obvious from the first page of the first episode what, you know, who these characters are, because it's all in the script. So it all sort of flows from that.
There's something very comforting about having the creators, writers, exec producers, you know, perfectionists. It's sort of like they take that, so we can kind of like play a bit, you know. They take the weight of that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think you'll think about, like, you know, that I've written other stuff and that I now sort of direct other things. That actually means the opposite. It feels like, oh, I can compartmentalize now. I'm here to act, and like I can fully. It's nice to sort of switch off the other parts of your brain and be like, you get to just have fun with this brilliant script.
Yeah, I bet. We've already mentioned her, but let's talk about Maud. Dylan, can you talk us through the sort of introduction and the writing of Maud, Sian Clifford's character?
Maud, one of my favorite pieces of series two to write. I think we loved the idea that I mean, initially she started kind of differently. It was sort of like the idea was that she was so obviously perfect for David and he totally didn't get it. And then she sort of like evolved into this kind of, I mean, it's a very uncomedy thing to say, but I think we talked about things like she's sort of like a dark mirror of Fiona, in that she's like, whereas sort of Fiona would want to kind of to fully kind of secure her kind of independence, might need to sort of break out of this system. Maud kind of finds sort of power sort of within it. So we like this sense of like, I remember we talked about like she sort of weaponizes her sort of use of the home and kind of domesticity and things like that. And she's like this kind of strangely warped sort of trad wife who just sort of somehow knows exactly how to push David's buttons basically. And it was kind of it was really fun to write that character because you sort of get straight away who she is and what her role is, and the mystery is sort of part of it. And Sian is just absolutely unbelievable. It just kind of, I mean, her kind of timing, her charisma, it was really amazing. So as soon as we found that we had her, we really kind of ran with it. And I think we gave her about 400% more lines, because it was just so fun to see her just kind of diving in. And I think, you know, seeing the face off between Sian and Kate, and seeing the ways that also Sian makes kind of Simon's character vulnerable, and sort of seeing that pressure cooker kind of come together is, you know, one of my favorite aspects of the series for sure.
Does that happen frequently, Ollie, where if an actor comes on and you want to write for the actor, does that happen a lot for you?
I think that we always try to write the voices of
Mm-hmm.
performers once we get to know them, and it's really reassuring to be able to do that. And certainly, we noticed as we were penning season two, all the characters that had already been established, we just had a supreme confidence of what would go well. And with the new characters, that was a process of discovery. And yeah, as Dylan says, as soon as Sian completely took over the role of Maud and brought her own amazing sinister influence to it, we immediately went back to the scripts, immediately added a bunch more stuff, but also changed the stuff to match the incredible energy that she brought to that role.
And Kate, you and Sian go way back, right? So how was that acting alongside
Amazing.
her?
I mean, we go way back. We went to RADA together. We're in the same year, so we were little sprogs together. And as soon as I knew it was Sean, I knew it was going to be she was going to be sensational. And just like casting is everything, really, because if you get the casting wrong, then you can kind of hide how good a script is in a way. And so Sean she gave such an inspired take on the love rival, and her energy is. I remember Jamie talking about her being like this sort of oil slick with her tentacles just smoothly, just overtaking everything. And it's a completely contrasting energy that complements the world. She was just absolutely brilliant every time. The first scene I think we did together was the pie dish scene, and it was just there was a frisson. Yeah, we had a shorthand, so yeah, it was great.
That scene was your intellectual battle, and as you met, I remember you kind of like stepping up to each other, and you saying, "Oh, we go way back," and Dylan and I were like, "Oh my god, it's real." The chemistry, it exists in the real world as well.
Yeah. It was like, hold our beers, here we go.
Simon, how does having like, it sounds really sinister, but like fresh blood on set up the ante for you as an actor?
I don't know whether it's so much about fresh blood as much as it is about, as Kate said, just having like being surrounded by brilliant people everywhere you turn. It's amazing getting to do a scene with Al Roberts, and then a scene with Liam, and a scene with Sean, and Morgana. It's just these are all people who are sort of at the top of their game, and that's going to make the show amazing. But more to the point, it makes the day, the filming day, really fun because there's no worries really. They're going to be funny, and they're going to bring the best out of you. So I mean, that's one element of the show that is so brilliant is the cast. And again, it's because of the ambition of the show is so huge. Like I do really think it's so rare for British shows to have a canvas as broad as this, and to be, juggling so many different characters at the same time. That's a really hard thing to do. And it's something that Dylan and Olive, had the vision for when there was no need to really. It could have been, the show could have been totally different. It could have been anything. But they somehow managed to put it off, and especially in the second series, it feels like there's so many stories in play. And one result of that is you get to absolutely load the cast with brilliant actors.
Having such a great comedy cast is one of the reasons it's so fun to do so much more ad lib and improv this season. They were much more confident opening that out. It does lead to this very sad situation where my friends will come up to me and say their favorite line, and it's something Al Roberts made up on the day usually. So that's feeling as a writer, but
you facilitated.
Yeah, for sure. I wound up Al and left him there, but
tell us about working with Jamie J. Johnson then, who the series director, who is one of the best people working in television. I love him. So he obviously kind of brings out such fun on the day. I've seen some of the behind the scenes. But yes, from your perspective, Dylan, start us off working with Jamie.
I absolutely love him. Like, I think he's really, really unselfish, and I mean that as like the highest compliment, because I think as a comedy director, really, if you're really prioritizing the comedy, you need to keep the coverage quite simple and give space to like the cast to, get lots of takes, as many takes as you can, but to do outlines, to free it up, to loosen it up. And every choice that I think Jamie makes is about sort of in service of the comedy rather than sort of pointing to a hand behind the camera. I don't think there's lots of choices in there that are making you think kind of, isn't that a weird angle? Or, why are we sort of, what isn't that a kind of interesting trick shot or whatever, and sort of taking you out of it. And, he just had this kind of really unflappable energy. And also this like kind of deceptively smart way of sort of playing the fool, I would say, at times. Like he'd sort of kind of like run in and deliberately sort of say something that he knew sounded a bit stupid, and I would be thinking like, I know exactly what your game is here, Jamie, but it's sort of a way of making everyone relax and kind of taking the edge off it and taking the pressure off it. And I think, you know, we as soon as we spoke to him about it, like we felt like he was perfect for the task, really, because we really did want to keep, you know, opening up the comedy kind of as much as possible this series. And he was really a big part of that.
I think Unflappable is really right. Yeah, I think like totally you got to be unselfish, but it's so important for a comedy director as well just to be chilled out.
Yeah.
Like the most important thing is that the set is relaxed and comfortable, and everyone feels at ease to try stuff out and to make a fool of themselves. And sometimes that's not possible if a director is visibly stressed out about how little time they've got left in the day.
You'd
So
always come in with a great little note that would be short, but like a visual kind of, like you're like a wolf devouring your prey. Go.
yeah.
Like things that just click you in, you know. Very useful.
I also think it's really telling that I knew him of him and was really excited that he was doing this because I'd seen I think he started out as a documentary maker, and he made some hilarious documentaries before he started doing sitcoms, which I'd seen and was just a huge fan of. And I think that is quite telling. I think that's like in the same way sort of Louis Theroux puts people at ease, he does that as well. And I just think that's such a useful skill for working with you know, a comedy cast.
Yeah. Ollie, I mean, both of you, Ollie and Dylan, you both had another cameo in this. But Oliver, on the behind the scenes, I heard Jamie directed you to just be a bit more weird. So tell us, could you remember?
Not a note I've ever gotten before in my life, I'll say. People really want me to tamp it down and put on the mask if at all possible. It was great because Amy James Kelly was behind the camera, not doing a very good job of not laughing, while Dylan and I just consumed, I think, about 45 minutes of just pure riffing
That
absolute
is not that it cannot
no,
be.
no. Or I guess we'll both agree to say it wasn't 45 minutes. But I have a memory of what happened that day. It was great. I was holding a Christingle that had fire on it, so I certainly felt pressure to wrap up the scene because the heat was on me, quite literally. I can't even begin to remember what the question was, but
I don't know if there was one. It was just
no,
about the
it was
direction
just
of you being a bit more
it was
weird.
Jamie saying, "Can you be a bit more weird?" Which is
Yeah.
not usually a note Ollie needs.
Yes.
Right.
Dylan and I had enormous fun getting a chance to just put our foot into this world, even briefly, even just once, and to stand across and around such amazing performers, even very briefly. But it was also very scary and intimidating, and it was always good to then retreat behind the camera with your notepad. Yeah. I remember one time I had to surrender my shirt for continuity. I'd gone in there and sat in a scene with my own actual shirt, and then I got to the end of the day, and costume were like, well, give it over then. I was like, what? I was like, we have to keep that. And so I kind of shamefully had to take my shirt off and leave it with them. So I've
Did they
suffered
offer
from
you
the
one
art.
back, or you just had to walk home topless?
No, you had to walk around topless as penance for hoovering up 45
No, they actually gave me a
time.
much nicer shirt from their department.
You've both mentioned that you like to come with revised scenes quite late in the day. So tell us about that, about the fact that you're kind of writing and changing right up until filming.
I mean, like to is an interesting. I
I was being
mean,
polite.
I think that, you know, I think we both feel a real sense of like, it's really we really wanted this to be a dense show. We aspired to make this, to have this kind of gag rate like an American sitcom, you know, that you don't get so much in this country. I think there's a lot of dramedies, traumedies, sadcoms, whatever you want to call it. You know, we wanted to aspire to just keeping the jokes flowing, and I think to do that, you know, some of the shows that we really loved, you know, they have this history of kind of pushing themselves, you know, as a kind of writing staff. And also, you know, I think we've been sort of in environments where we're used to making changes quite late, but also you can't entirely know how something works or whether it's working until you sort of see it on its feet. And we have the table read, but also things do change when you're blocking it on set. So we tried not to make sort of wholesale changes, but I think if we felt like, there was a line that maybe we could top, we'd try and come in on that. Or if there was a bit of space, I mean, sometimes there would just be that little bit of time where Jamie would say, okay, we've got 5 minutes. Do you want to get a note or something? And it's so useful to get to the edit to have another choice for some of these lines, because I think it's like, but there's so many different levels of like, sometimes it's funny on set and you get to the edit and it's dead. Sometimes it feels dead on set and you get to the edit and it's like the best thing. It's like making a comedy to me feels like this sort of impossible kind of alchemy where all of these different things have to come together. So I think there is also the fact Ollie and I are very neurotic people, and probably quite broken as human beings. So we tend to sort of fiddle with stuff. But I'd like to think we were doing it. It was always to try and make it better rather than sort of spinning the wheels and arbitrarily, changing stuff for the sake of changing stuff.
Dylan's diligence is incredible. He'll point to a gag and say, "Oh, that's an 8 out of 10 gag," and I'll go, "Yeah," and he'll say, "That's not good enough." I hope you're prepared to stay up late. I think we only had one occasion when Jamie leaned over to see me typing away on my MacBook and said, "Am I going to need to cut off your hands?" with a big smile on his face, and I took that in the best way. He appreciated our notes and changes.
I'm sure.
Most of the time, yeah.
Okay, and Simon, what about for you when you kind of, that must keep you on your toes, but it must be quite exciting, right? To kind of, it feels very fresh and up to the minute. It feels like it could never get stale.
Definitely.
Totally, yeah. And it's just an example of the perfectionism that Ollie and Dylan bring to the process. And obviously, as people that are in the show and invested in it being as good as it possibly can be, that's great for us. I'm always excited to get new jokes. It's just that's the fun of the job.
The most important, if it's better, it's better, and it's just a muscle you have to build up as a performer, just so that you can start taking in the lines quicker. It was a bit difficult this time because I had a 5-month-old baby at home and wasn't sleeping at all. But apart from that, it was fine.
Oh, sorry.
No, it was all good.
In terms of like the sets as well and the props used, because I know that Sian was so excited to come on and actually inhabit a space that she'd been watching for the first series. So it is, we really feel like we're in the living room of the Lewises. But in terms of the sets and the props, what were you really excited to see come to life thanks to the art department in series 2?
I think they won't be, above and beyond on the wedding.
The buffet.
The banquet,
yeah.
oh my God.
Which was
the spaghetti hoop jelly.
Probably the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
And it got mouldy because we were there for a few days. So it was absolutely
Oh
gross.
my God, was it real?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was real. I really wish no one had pointed out the rot to me. That was an info hazard because the moment I knew that, I smelt it.
I know, we banked those. We got the sort of B unit to bank those cutaways early, and then the buffet stayed up for a good week. And I think it had been sprayed with PVA glue or something, but it did not stave off the rot very much at all. It stayed a deep background.
That's disgusting. Really wish I hadn't asked that question. Also, I love the music choices this time around. Is that something that you guys write in? Is that always like sort of how 360 are you with your scripts?
I don't think we don't tend to write sort of music cues in, but we do have like a brief for how we want the music to be used and how we want it to feel. And I think there was something with series 1 where like the director really wanted sort of music to be kind of running under whole scenes as a sort of wash that we didn't necessarily love, not because the music's not good, but just because it can step on the dialogue basically, or step on the feel. So this series was kind of, we had a really great kind of relationship with Tom, the composer, who's really, really talented and kind of granular and really dives into the detail of it. And I just spent like a few days with him in his little kind of homemade sort of studio, and we went through kind of cue by cue, and he had a really good feel of sort of like how we could develop things from series one and make it feel a little bit more propulsive and a little bit more like, a lot of the cues are kind of shorter this time, but also kind of keep things feeling connected. And there are some sort of themes from series one that we revisit really nicely. There's like I think it's called David's Plan in series one soundtrack that becomes the sort of music that plays and develops when Fiona and David are, having their kind of relationship sort of progression. And it was, and it was just really cool. He'd do stuff like, he'd be like, okay, so how do we develop that theme for when they push the beds together? And he'd sort of come up with this kind of weird sort of pipe organ effect that would be about as sexual as you could make an organ sound, I think. um, so yeah, that was a real joy actually to like dive into that with him and Jamie and Ollie, of course.
Yeah. I was thinking, because we've got Conclave coming out soon, we've got Heretic that's just come out. We're getting more projects dealing with religious beliefs. Why do you think that's kind of happening now? That it sort of feels like there's, I don't know, bravery to some of these projects, which perhaps wasn't there before.
Shall I be the spokesperson for all of them?
I don't know, Dylan. I'm aware
Go on,
it's my
Dylan.
turn, but also you're the person who's toiled under the yoke of various different
Totally, yeah, no,
more,
I'll jump on that grenade for us all. I mean, I think there is something. I think it's sort of baked into the heart of this show. I guess the way that we look at it is like that. There's something very relatable. It seems there's a lot about this community that seems difficult to relate to, but there is something really relatable about wanting to be part of a family, wanting to have kind of routine, wanting to have structure, wanting to have something to believe in that is going to sort of tell you that everything will be okay if you behave a certain way. Because it is a time when we're sort of feeling, it's an obvious point to make, but it's so easy to feel disconnected and chaotic and sort of isolated. And so I think there is a sort of kind of thematic kind of resonance to just feeling like, what about that kind of structure and routine and community that you can get from sort of, and just the sort of sheer some kind of security that you can get from feeling like there's a plan and how things are going to work out. I mean, Heretic and Conclave are both, neither of those are comedy. I'd like to think we've got the comedy niche cornered exclusively.
I
with
also
this
think,
show.
I mean, I can't speak for Heretic or Conclave, which I haven't seen, but I also really think in Everyone Else Burns that obviously that it is about religion, but to me it sort of isn't as well. I think that the order is fictional, and to me it feels like a metaphor for what I guess like conservative social moral values, that and that feels like a very universal and relatable issue that everyone grows up dealing with. It's about, I think it's about kids who are more progressive than their parents, who are sort of out of step with the spirit of the times. So for me, the religious aspect of it is of secondary importance, really.
You have to believe that if David wasn't in the order, he'd still be cluelessly trying to climb whatever social ladder he happened to be on very badly. Yeah.
And Ollie, we've sort of alluded to this a few times about the importance of the comedy sitcom, and like The Guardian said, this brilliant doomsday show might just save the sitcom. So do you think that the sitcom has waned, and why is it so important that it doesn't?
I think, as Dylan mentioned before, it does seem there's been a shift away from kind of comedy for the sake of comedy. High gag rate sitcoms, a big emphasis on making sure that you get those belly laughs and making sure that even if you have an important point to make, even if you have an interesting setting, you're still trying to pack the show with gags and not letting an interesting set of characters and a cool narrative distract from that. So that was kind of forefront in our philosophy as we were writing this. We were well aware that every time we write one of these episodes, we're having to balance a through line of story for the characters that's going to go across the full series, but we never rest on our laurels, and as Phil was talking about with halting every gag 30 times. We were trying to make sure that it was funny from start to finish. So potentially that has waned slightly. And yeah, we would love to see a resurgence in that.
You know, I would say this as somebody whose livelihood depends on the song. But I do think comedy is both the hardest and the most vitally important genre to get right. I think I think good comic writing requires an understanding of nuance, sort of a complexity of thought, and most importantly, just a sort of basic human empathy that is not actually required of a good thriller or a horror or a police procedural. I think it's telling that the most beloved and the most universally praised TV series of the last few years, Succession and I May Destroy You, have come from writers who cut their teeth in TV comedy. I do think there is a strong overlap between being funny and just understanding how and why people behave the way they do, and because both those things require a basic generosity of spirit. So yeah, I definitely I think it's really important that we sort of cherish and protect and nurture the sitcom. And it's a shame when no, I won't name names. I will name names. Something like The Bear, which is an incredible show, and I love The Bear, but it is to me bonkers that is in at the Emmys winning Best Comedy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a weird. Sorry, Kate. You go.
No, that was it. That was
Oh,
like
okay.
I
No, I was just going to say
it deserves every award out there, except for that one.
it's it's something that we talked about a lot, because I think I agree with Simon that, like, I think it's so hard to get comedy to do a comedy that is a hard comedy. And we felt like when we were sort of constructing this show that we did have the ingredients there, that we could have done a sort of, to be sort of glib about it, like a sort of point of view sadcom that was sort of mainly a sort of short drama masquerading as a comedy, and had a very clear kind of moral sort of thrust to it. And that was never something that really excited us, because it seemed like we wanted to sort of try and take that element out of it a little bit and just make something that was hopefully pound to pound a really funny show. And I think, like, I don't know, hopefully we are going to see more shows that are really prioritizing being hard funny. And yeah, I mean, it would be lovely to be a small part of that, I guess.
What a lovely note to end on. The all new series of Everyone Else Burns is available to stream live on Channel 4 now. Thank you to our incredible panelists, Dylan, Ollie, Kate and Simon. And we hope that you've enjoyed watching today's RTS Q&A on Everyone Else Burns. And for a full list of upcoming RTS events, please visit the RTS website. Thank you all so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.